This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
In the headlines, as tensions with Washington reach a deadlock, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi hails very good ideas from the Kremlin. After marathon talks with Vladimir Putin in St. Petersburg, Tehran declares the Middle East conflict has proven who its true friends are as ties with Moscow reach a new summit. A fragile truce, but a firm warning. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vows to disarm Hezbollah, asserting that Israel retains total freedom of action to strike north of the Litani River whenever a threat emerges. A horrific rail disaster in Indonesia. At least 14 are dead and dozens more injured after a high-speed express train slams into a stalled commuter line at Bekasi Timor Station. We'll have the latest on the rescue efforts. A global appeal to the United Nations. In Japan, members of the Filipino community take to the streets, formally petitioning the UN for the interim release of former President Rodrigo Duterte while challenging the very jurisdiction of the ICC. Back at home, Malacanang breaks its silence on the deadly clashes in Negros Occidental. The palace now backing a formal probe into the encounter that left alleged insurgents dead amid calls for transparency. And in sports, Houston stays alive. The Rockets deliver a stunning rout of the Lakers to stave off elimination and keep their championship hopes burning. I'm Prince Tripoli. Newsline World starts now. For our first story, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has declared that Israel is on the path to completely disarming Hezbollah, asserting that the IDF will continue to strike emerging threats anywhere in Lebanon regarding of the current truce. Kai Villan reports.
Speaking from the Ramat David Air Base on Monday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a firm assessment of the War of Revival's Northern Front. Despite the 3-week ceasefire extension recently brokered in Washington, Netanyahu clarified that Israel's agreement with the U.S. and Lebanon includes freedom of action. This allows the IDF to thwart immediate and emerging threats, not only in the established security buffer, but also north of the Litani River. Netanyahu revealed that while Hezbollah's infrastructure has been decimated, the group still retains approximately 10% of its pre-war missile arsenal. He identified the remaining 122mm rockets and UAV drones as the primary troubling threats to residents in northern Israel, prompting a surge to both kinetic strikes and new technological defense measures.
חופש הפעולה שלנו הוא לסכל איומים. איומים מיידיים, איומים מתהווים. זה ההסכם שעשינו עם ארצות הברית וגם עם ממשלת לבנון.
The Prime Minister emphasized that the creation of the security buffer zone has successfully prevented a direct invasion, but he warned that the job is not finished. Since operations began on March 2, the conflict has resulted in over 2,500 deaths and displaced more than 1 million people in Lebanon. Netanyahu noted that the political resolution depends entirely on the military's ability to neutralize the drone and rocket threat. As the ceasefire enters its extended phase, the IDF remains on high alert, prepared to strike any rioting or rearmament efforts by Hezbollah forces across the border.
בדרך לפירוק חיזבאללה מנשקו, כי זה הנשק העיקרי שיש לו. זה מה שנשאר לו. יש לו בערך 10% מהטילים שהיו לו בתחילת המלחמה, אבל אלה עדיין מטרידים את תושבי הצפון, ואני מאוד מעריך את העמידה שלהם, את האיתנות שלהם, אבל לנו נשארו שתי משימות, ומה שאני מצפה מכם זה לפתור את שתי הבעיות הללו, כי את הצד המדיני אני חושב שאנחנו נוכל לפתור אם פתרנו את זה.
As the Washington talks continue, Netanyahu's rhetoric signals that Israel will not accept a return to the status quo, maintaining a strong hand until the total disarmament of Hezbollah is achieved. Reporting for Newsline World, Kai Villan, SMNA News.
As tensions with Washington reach a deadlock, Tehran is strengthening its ties with Moscow. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in St. Petersburg recently, praising Russia as a steadfast ally in the face of U.S. and Israeli pressure. Carlo de la Peña for the details.
The Kremlin is again serving as a diplomatic anchor for Iran. Following a high-stakes meeting in St. Petersburg, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi characterized his talks with President Vladimir Putin as exceptionally productive. Araghchi revealed that the session lasted more than 90 minutes, covering a wide spectrum of issues including bilateral relations, regional security, and the ongoing conflict with the U.S. and Israel.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. ملاقات بسیار خوبی رو با جناب پوتین داشتیم، شاید بیش از 1 ساعت و نیم طول کشید. همه موضوعات هم در روابط دو جانبه، هم در مسائل منطقه‌ای، هم در بحث جنگ و تجاوز رژیم آمریکا و رژیم صهیونیستی، همه ابعاد بسیار مورد بحث قرار گرفت و همینطور همکاری‌های بین دو کشور. ایده‌های بسیار خوبی مطرح شد، زمینه‌های بسیار خوبی الان برای همکاری وجود داره. آقای پوتین هم فرمودن که نه فقط روسیه، همه دنیا الان داره تحسین میکنه مردم ایران رو به خاطر ایستادگیشون در مقابل آمریکا و به خاطر در اصل پیروزی در این جنگ نابرابر و ناعادلانه. ما از مواضع دوستان روسیه خودمون متشکر هستیم در طول این جنگ و من اراده جمهوری اسلامی ایران رو برای ادامه روابط راهبردی و شراکت راهبردی با روسیه در شرایط جدید هم اعلام.
The visit also served as a symbolic. Aragchi arrived in St. Petersburg aboard Minab 168, a flight named to commemorate the girls' school attacked at the onset of the offensive in late February. Speaking directly to the Russian leader, Aragchi made it clear that the current crisis has solidified a bond between the two nations. He said the conflict in the Middle East had shown how his country had friends and allies such as the Russian Federation. For his part, Putin reportedly praised the courage and heroism of the Iranian people and pledged continued Russian support.
And of course, we really hope that based on this courage, this commitment to independence, the people of Iran, under the leadership of the Supreme Leader, they will go through this period of trials and they will see peace established in the country.
This meeting marks the conclusion of Aragchi's regional tour, which included stops in Oman and Pakistan. Despite President Trump extending the ceasefire last Wednesday, the second round of direct talks between Washington and Tehran failed to materialize, pushing Iran closer to its partners in the East. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
As the clock ticks on the current ceasefire, U.S. President Donald Trump has convened his top national security advisors to discuss a fresh diplomatic overture from Tehran. The new three-phase framework delivered via Pakistani mediators seeks to reopen the Strait of Hormuz while pushing the contentious issue of nuclear weaponry to a later date. However, the White House is sending a clear signal that it will not be coaxed into a deal that lacks permanent nuclear guarantees. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed that President Trump spent the morning reviewing the new Iranian proposal with his security team. While Leavitt declined to state whether the president would accept the terms, she emphasized that Washington's red lines remain unchanged. The proposal, also reported by Axios, appears designed to break the current stalemate by bypassing internal disagreements within the Iranian leadership over nuclear consensus. By separating the maritime crisis from the nuclear issue, Tehran hopes to lift the crippling U.S. naval blockade first. However, U.S. officials are wary. Secretary of State Marco Rubio noted that any deal to reopen the strait must involve total freedom of navigation, not a system where Iran decides who passes. Critics also argued that accepting this deal would leave Trump with little leverage to eventually force Tehran to give up its stockpile of enriched uranium. Meanwhile, an unprecedented wave of settler violence has left the village of Halud in ruins, as residents describe a barbaric attack by over 100 settlers who torched homes, vehicles, and critical medical facilities. Omar Friswell reports.
The village of Jalud, south of Nablus, became a scene of absolute devastation on Monday as a massive mob of Israeli settlers launched what local leaders call the most unprecedented attack in weeks. Charred remains of vehicles and homes, including a medical emergency room at the village council building, after attackers used fuel to ignite several structures simultaneously. Raed Al-Nasser, head of the Jalud Village Council, described the raid as the fifth major assault this year. He reported that the attackers targeted isolated homes, specifically swarming the Al-Tobasi family estate, where they breached walls and set fire to storage sheds and poultry farms. Residents expressed frustration over the response time of the IDF, who reportedly arrived several hours after the fires had already consumed much of the property.
هاجموا علينا فوق ال 200 مستوطن تقريبا. حاولوا من كل الجهات حوطوا الدور جميعهم واحنا على ظهر الدور نحاجر عليهم على الفاضي، ما قدرنا نساوي ولا اي شيء. فيش يا دوب بكينا 10 12 واحد جميعنا موزعين على الدارين. فاتوا من تحت البلكونه هان فتحوا فتحه في الطوب وفاتوا منها معاهم بنزين ولعوا السياره وكل شيء قدروا ولعوه.
This latest raid comes amid a staggering surge in violence across the West Bank. According to the Palestinian Colonization and Wall Resistance Commission, settlers carried out nearly 500 attacks in March alone, contributing to a total of over 4,700 incidents recorded since the start of 2025, as families are forced to evacuate their scourged properties. the humanitarian crisis in the West Bank continues to spiral. While the international community remains focused on the ceasefire negotiations in Washington, the escalating settler war in Nablus threatens to ignite a broader regional uprising that could derail the fragile path to peace. Reported for Newsline World, Almar Forsuelo, SMNA News.
Protests in Japan are gaining momentum, with a growing number of young people joining rallies against constitutional revision and defense policy changes. Demonstrators gathered outside government buildings, voicing concerns over what they describe as increasing militarization and authoritarian tendencies. Others criticized the expansion of the defense industry, questioning the use of public funds for weapons production.
に関しては、国内の問題を覆い隠す、ために、軍事を利用する、また、権威主義的傾向を、強めている。権威主義的な、人々の感情を煽り立てて、支持を集めている部分があります。
人を殺すのは武器でしょ。そんなもので戦争なんかやって人が殺されて、なぜそれで武器を作ってる軍需産業だけが儲かる。しかもそれは私たちの税金で武器が作られて人が殺される。そんなことに賛成できるはずがない。
Participants also noted a visible shift in demographics, with more young people now actively taking part in demonstrations.
どんどん立ち上がって高市さん、自民党だとね、そういうのはしていった方がいいと思うので嬉しいことだと思ってます。今まではね、60代、70代、80代がデモはメインだったんですけど、ね、国会前のデモとかペンライトデモとかを見てて、やっと来たかなと思ってます。
The protests reflect widening public debate over Japan's security direction as discussions on constitutional revision continue. In Japan, members of the Filipino community held a picket protest outside the United Nations headquarters to demand the interim release of the former leader. The group also formally submitted a petition challenging the ICC's jurisdiction and seeking a procedural review of the case. Guy Saito reports from Shibuya.
The Filipino community in Japan gathered once again to show support for former President Rodrigo Duterte. Rain or shine, the Filipino community in Japan gathered to show their unwavering support for former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. This comes amid the dismissal of the former president's appeal questioning the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court or ICC over his case on crimes against humanity. Recently, the PhilCom, led by the Republic Defenders for Peace and Unity or RDPU, went to the United Nations or UN headquarters here in Japan.
Bilang isang representante ng grupo, ay nakapagpahayag tayo ng ating saloobin, ng ating mga obserbasyon at saka ang ating opinyon sa mga nangyayari sa panahong ito.
The group submitted a formal letter addressed to Judge Tomoko Akane, the current president of the ICC. The letter was received by Kawadi Nobuyuki, security and EMS officer and country focal point of UN Japan, calling for the interim release of the former president.
Tayo ay humihingi ng ito'y urgent petition na humihingi ng interim release and procedural review regarding the former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
FPRRD's lead counsel, Attorney Nicholas Kaufman, previously noted that the ICC considers Duterte a big catch, making his release unlikely, a factor cited in the dismissal of his jurisdiction appeal.
Issue na si Tatay Digong ay isa talagang big fish para sa kanila, pipili ng bigyan ng interim release si Tatay Digong. Ang ICC, sila ay banyaga na walang jurisdiction para sa ating bansa, para hatulan o kaya ikulong ang ating former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte.
Despite the unfavorable decision of the ICC, RDPU and the Japan PhilCom said they remain firm and will not lose hope.
Lalong-lalo na kami rito sa Japan, ito ay lalong nagpapatibay ng aming pagkakaisa. Dahil ang laban ni Tatay Digong ay hindi lang laban ng isang tao bilang isang Duterte, kundi ito'y laban ng bawat Pilipino.
As they concluded their protest, the group left this message of solidarity for the former president.
Lagi mong isipin na maraming Pilipino, sambayanang Pilipino ang nag-iisip ng iyong tunay na kalayaan. Sa bagay para sa amin, malaya ka dahil nandito kami. Pinalaya mo ang miyang Pilipino. Patuloy nating tutulan ang ganitong masamang ginagawa ng mga nasa kapangyarihan, lalong-lalo na ang International Criminal Court na wala naman talagang dapat na jurisdiction sa ating dignidad at pagkatao bilang Pilipino.
The legal team of FPRD earlier said they will continue to pursue all possible legal remedies to assert the former president's rights. Meanwhile, FPRD's youngest daughter, Kitty, said that the former president's condition has improved despite the challenges they are facing. Reporting from Shibuya, Japan, this has been Guy Saito, SMNI News, Japan.
A catastrophic multi-vehicle collision at Bikasi Timur Station has left at least 4 people dead and 38 others injured after a long-distance express train slammed into a sole commuter line on Monday night. This story from Rahil Parma.
Chaos erupted at Bikasi Timur Station, approximately 30 kilometers from Jakarta, following a rare and deadly double-impact accident. According to eyewitnesses, the tragedy began around 8:50 p.m. when a KRL commuter train struck an online taxi at the Bulak-Kapal level crossing. The initial impact caused the commuter train to stall on the tracks. Just 10 minutes later, the long-distance Argo Brumo Agrok, bound for Surabaya, entered the same line and telescoped into the rear of the stationary KRL. Drone footage captured a massive emergency response with a fleet of ambulances lining the station perimeter as rescue teams used specialized equipment to reach passengers trapped inside the crumpled steel carriages. Survivors describe a scene of pure terror as the second impact sent commuters flying across the aisles.
Pada panik, tadinya juga kita orang panik karena kereta kita kan takutnya menabrak yang depan kan mobil. Nah ternyata dari belakang ditabrak lagi kita orang. Langsung aduh, pada mental semua, iya, pada mental semua.
Rescue workers were seen transporting the critically injured to nearby hospitals throughout the night, while others provided first aid to passengers sitting on the platforms in shock. Investigations are now centering on signaling protocols and why the Argo Brumo Express was not alerted to the stalled commuter train in time to prevent the second, more lethal collision. The Ministry of Transportation has confirmed that recovery efforts are ongoing and train services on the busy Jakarta-Cikarang corridor remain significantly disrupted. For the families of the victims, the night has turned into a desperate vigil as authorities work to identify the deceased. This has been Rahil Parba, your global citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Malacanang supports the investigation into the clashes that occurred in Negros Occidental, where alleged members of the terrorist CPP and PANDF were killed. Creslin Catarong reports.
The Philippine government supports the investigation into a series of clashes between government troops and suspected members of the New People's Army in the town of Taboso, Negros Occidental. This was announced by Presidential Communications Office Undersecretary Claire Castro.
According to AFP, legitimate military operation na naganap. At ang sabi din ni General Browner, they were armed.
Based on reports, 19 people were killed in the military operations in Taboso, including 2 U.S. citizens. The National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, or NTF-ELCAC, said the deaths of the 2 U.S. citizens indicate an increase in the involvement of foreigners in local armed hostilities. Meanwhile, the Commission on Human Rights announced that it has begun an independent investigation into the encounters. Castro meanwhile stressed that the president's directive is clear to continue the fight against terrorism and communism. This was her response to a question regarding President Marcos' directive to the NTF-ELCAC Executive Committee concerning the government's campaign against communist insurgency.
Dapat labanan ang terorismo, dapat labanan ang komunismo. Yung mga maaari nang gugulo sa ating bayan. So, Yun lamang po. Basta dapat po legal ang ginagawa.
During the said meeting, the committee endorsed key policy directions to ensure responsive governance. Among the recommendations are the proposed expansion of the amnesty program, prioritization of key legislation, and increased funding for development. This also includes the strengthening of the task force mechanisms to make governance more effective and responsive at both national and local levels. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Cresceline Catarong, SMNI News.
Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao were united in a wave of happiness as thousands of children joined the celebration of Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy's birthday during International Children's Day. Let's find out more about this with Daniela Polite.
For Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy, the dream has always been simple, that every child, especially the underprivileged, deserves to experience the magic of a birthday. This is why he dedicates his own special day to the children, not just in the Philippines, but across the globe. This mission of compassion began when his ministry was still in its infancy. It was a promise made to the Almighty that if he were blessed, he would share those blessings with the needy, focusing specifically on children living in poverty. In the Philippines alone, thousands of children from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao celebrated Pastor Apollo Sikibuloy's birthday. In Mindanao, volunteers trekked to remote highlands to reach families. Children were treated to grand celebrations. Children flocked to the grand celebration where they received food and gifts. Beyond that, Pastor Apollo also provided free medical assistance and free haircuts. Because of this, children and parents were deeply grateful for the opportunity to experience this kind of joy and love. Volunteers also visited the highlands of Sitio Marang in Laak, home to the Manavu and the Babawon tribes. Pastor Apollo did not just offer a simple birthday party, but support through healthcare services such as dental checkups and medical assistance for the entire community. The children thoroughly enjoyed every food booth, the meals, games, and gifts during the grand celebration. In Kitbug, parents also received free medical services, not only consultations and basic tests, but also free medicines. Even the children underwent checkups to ensure their health amidst the fun and laughter.
Pastor, salamat sa pagkaon ug sa regalo. Thank you, Pastor, sa imong gipakaon sa tanan bata ug sa mga regalo na imong gipanghatag. Nya happy kayo mi Pastor. Dagan kay mig nagawat nga regalo og pagkaon. Pastor, milipay kayo mi pati ako mga amiga. Ang imong birthday, Pastor, malapad akong birthday. Salamat kayo, Pastor. Lipay kay ko, Pastor. Salamat sa mong gihatag sa mga nadulaan ng mga pagkaon. Diligid mo mo kinakalimutan dire, Pastor. Salamat kayo.
The Blaan IT community expressed their heartfelt gratitude for Pastor Apollo's continuous support, such as access to roads, clean water, and electricity that has transformed their daily lives. In Sitio Obod-Obod, the children also had a great time as Pastor Apollo's volunteers brought Sunshine Land to their area.
My impression of Pastor Apollo Kibuloy really was a man of good heart. Because sino yung tao na nagmamahal para sa mga bata? Yun ang taong talagang nagmamahal para sa bayan.
The celebration of ACQ International Children's Day was also colorful and full of fun in Cagayan de Oro City. In Bohol, ACQ-ICD reached the small island of Balikasag to bring light to children who rarely experience such celebrations.
Salamat, Pastor, paghatag nimo sa bag, chalilas, ug dulaan, magamit nako pag-eskwela. Nalipay ko bisag daga Islam ni. Gimbita ka pa ni Pastor sa iyang birthday. Dalingaw ko, Pastor, sa daghag ice cream ug sa imong mga bata.
The children who attended Pastor Apollo's birthday in Cebu were likewise filled with happiness. In Iloilo, volunteers visited the town of San Miguel to deliver gifts, food, and games for the kids.
Happy birthday, Pastor. Salamat sa pagkaon. Thank you. Happy birthday, Pastor. Salamat sa pagkaon.
In Pangasinan, volunteers even crossed a river by boat just to reach the children of Calasiao. Carrying boxes of gifts, the grand celebration was joyfully held. Laguna did not fall behind, where hundreds of children and parents enjoyed the birthday of Pastor Apollo dedicated to poor children nationwide. Hundreds of children in Las Piñas City also attended the celebration filled with joy and fun games. Finally, children in Quezon City also enjoyed the parlor games and the prizes they took home. Together, the children shared delicious meals, followed by the distribution of special gifts from Pastor Apollo. International Children's Day was established back in 2006. Today, spanning 2 decades, this mission of Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy remains more vibrant than ever, continuing to serve as a beacon of light and hope for every Filipino child. Reporting for Newsline World, Daniela Paulite, SMNI News.
In celebration of Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy's birthday, thousands of children across different continents were filled with happiness through ACQ International Children's Day. This event has officially been dubbed the adopted birthday of the many children supported by the beloved pastor. This report.
Across various parts of the world, the warmth of Pastor Apollo C. Quiboloy's love was felt through the grand festivities of ACQ International Children's Day. Distance proved to be no obstacle in sending a powerful message that every child is important and deserves to be cherished. What started as a simple gesture of kindness has blossomed into a worldwide celebration of Pastor Apollo's dedication to the youth. In Thailand, many children from Ratchaburi and Pethkasem was treated to a trip to the famous Dreamworld amusement park, enjoying free tickets and a full day of meals and adventure. In Cambodia's Kanmenche community, children beat the summer heat with swimming and games at the nation's largest indoor playground.
Happy birthday, Papa Pastor! We love you!
In Indonesia, Jakarta hosted a lively program filled with dancing and games, where hundreds of gift boxes were distributed to children and their families. In Malaysia, the mission reached the remote areas of the Orang Asli, indigenous people providing children with school supplies, hygiene kits, and healthy meals. Children in Tokyo, Japan enjoyed the rides and parades of Disneyland, while in Nagoya, families gathered for a peaceful picnic at Sakura Hanami in the spring air. Hong Kong's Southern Stadium was filled with Pastor Apollo, provided abundant gifts and a day of rest for thousands of OFWs. According to them, the word happy is not enough to describe the love they felt from the pastor, especially since they are far from their families. Meanwhile, in Singapore, the celebration of ACQ-ICD was not only for the youth because Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy gifted overseas Filipino workers with a day full of joy as a rest from their work. In London, United Kingdom, volunteers visited senior citizens and their families to hand out gifts, followed by a feeding program for the children. The celebration of ACQ-ICD was also successful in Morocco. In Denmark, it was celebrated with refugee children from Ukraine, Poland, and Romania. And in Spain, where children with special needs attended. In Kenya, ACQ-ICD returned to Gatehill Children's School in Nairobi, a school that Pastor Apollo himself helped to build. After this, the group proceeded to Naivasha to bring joy to the students of Eric Junior Academy. In Brazil, the children took part in an art workshop before the unlimited food and games. In Honduras, Bolivia, and Costa Rica, volunteers once again delivered help and smiles for families in need. The celebration also reached Melbourne and Sydney, Australia. While in Canada, the Kingdom Compound in Vancouver became a mini Sunshine Land, which was followed by programs in Toronto, Edmonton, and the community of Ermineskin Cree Nation and Wetaskiwin. And in the United States, they returned to the youth in the Appalachian Mountains and Zooey, Kentucky. After donating a mobile library before, a new playground was opened by Pastor Apollo for the children in the Highland community. For Pastor Apollo, love for one another chooses no race or religion, and concern recognizes no distance. Through the ACQ International Children's Day, it has been proven once again that in every gift given and every child made happy, the mission of Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy remains alive. And that is a proper future for the next generation. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Prince Jubilee, SMN News.
The 2026 ACQ International Children's Day continues to touch lives across the globe. Friends and supporters of Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy have come forward to share their personal messages of admiration and gratitude. MJ Monihar has the story.
Visitors, longtime friends, and supporters of our beloved Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy have joined the festivities of this year's ACQ-ICD.
The KOGC Cathedral was filled with joy during the feeding program held for the birthday celebration this year of Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ. Central to the celebration were the thousands of children participating in the ACQ International Children's Day. Each child received loot bags containing food and gifts from the good pastor and his partners in service. Witnessing the scale of the event, several high-profile personalities in attendance expressed their deep admiration for the mission. Among them was SMNA Anchor Boss Dada TV.
Namimigay tayo ng regalo. Ito lang ang birthday ng daming celebrant. 1,000 kabataan ang mabibigyan ng loot bags at siyempre ng regalo. Libre, pati yung mga bouncy castles sa labas, yung mga inflatables at saka mga cotton candy. Libre din ang popcorn, ice cream, lahat. Grabe, ang saya. ng mga kabataan ngayon, boss?
Sabi po sa birthday ni Pastor.
Ayun na nga, lagi natin sinasabi na blessing talaga si Pastor sa Bayang Pilipinas, hindi lang sa Bayang Pilipinas, pati sa mga kabataan na ito na sa kabila ng pinagdadaan ng pagsubok ng ating mahal na Pastor, nakapagbigay pa siya ng ngiti at saya sa mga kabataan natin. Happy birthday!
For Davao City Councilor Danny Dianghirang, Pastor Apollo clearly demonstrates the spirit of giving on his birthday.
This is an spirit of giving, and it's become already a legacy. Legacy started by Pastor, continued by supporters, and now it will inculcate in the minds of these children that, you know, someday generosity also will flow to the next generation. Because all of these things are just coming from God, we just share it to them, going back to the people. So, this is a good legacy and continuing ang maong yung pagpapakita, pagmamahal sa kapwa-tao.
Sir, this concept was conceived and first implemented in Davao City. You are a Davao City Councilor. What do you say about that, sir?
Well, very laudable. You know, the government cannot do it alone. Hindi kaya ng government. So let's support the program sa mga kabataan, and this was started by Pastor Kibulo, and I hope it will continue. Because as what I've said, hindi kaya ng gobyerno lahat. Kailangan tulungan yung gobyerno, and we pray that this government will also recognize sa mga legacy ni Pastor Kibulo.
Meanwhile, according to former National Commission on Indigenous Peoples or NCIP Chair Alan Capuyan, the Good Pastor's continuous acts of kindness toward the youth are truly admirable. Representatives from the Indigenous Peoples community who are close to Pastor Apollo's heart also extended their greetings.
That is the biggest investment. Di ba? Palaging ang pag-asa ay nasa kabataan. Ang pangitain ng pastor ay yung sa kabataang edad pa lang, tinitrain na yung mga bata sa takot sa Diyos, sa kanilang mga ugali, at we have so many fruits na nung unang mga nakaraang taon, mga bata pa, ngayon mga college graduate na at naglalingkod sa Panginoon sa Body of Christ.
In behalf sa mga bai at mga dato na mula sa Mindanao Indigenous Peoples Council of Elders and Leaders, kung saan naging kapatid namin si Dato Pamulingan, si Pastor Apollo Kibuloy, na sa amin ang pagpahalaga namin sa kanya bilang bridge sa amin patungo sa Diyos, no? Kaya yun yung ibig sabihin ng pamulingan. So hanggang ngayon po patuloy po ang aming pagdasal at sana darating ang panahon na lumaya si Pastor at makasama namin dito sa Mindanao, kung saan po napakarami ang naghihintay sa kanya ng mga kapatid na tribo mula Malungon hanggang po dito sa Davao City. Happy birthday po, Pastor!
For more than 20 years, the Good Pastor has dedicated his birthday to large-scale charitable activities worldwide. This year's success proves once again that no crises can stop his enduring love for children in need. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been MJ Mondeha, SMNI News.
Actor Kyle Echari has revealed that his upcoming film 18th Rose was deeply inspired by his late sister. Meanwhile, Dylan Carter has died after a car crash on a highway in South Carolina, authorities confirm. Andrea Santos has all the buzz.
Actor Kyle Echari is opening about the profound inspiration behind his latest project, 18th Rose. In an emotional reveal, Echari shares how the film serves as a tribute to a very special person in his life. During a press conference, Echari shared that his sister Isabella, who passed away in April 2023 at the age of 12 due to a brain tumor, became the emotional foundation for his role. The actor said the project holds personal significance as he channels his real-life experiences into his performance. 18th Rose is set to stream on Netflix, adding to the platform's growing lineup of Filipino content. A Cherry story has resonated with fans, highlighting how personal loss can shape powerful storytelling on screen. In a heartbreaking turn of events, the music community is mourning the loss of a rising star. Former The Voice contestant Dylan Carter has passed away following a violent car accident in South Carolina. The 24-year-old reportedly lost control of his 2026 Tesla sedan while driving along U.S. Route 21, also known locally as the Low Country Highway. According to the South Carolina Highway Patrol, the vehicle veered off the road, struck a utility pole in a fence before flipping over. Officials said the crash occurred late Saturday night, with emergency responders arriving shortly after the incident. Investigators are still looking into the exact cause of the crash. As the investigation continues, tributes are pouring in from fans and fellow artists for the talented young singer. And that's all for now. This is Sigrid Castañeda bringing you the latest showbiz.
In sports, Houston Rockets deliver a dominant response to keep their playoff hopes alive and deny an early series sweep. Meanwhile, history was rewritten in marathon running as Sebastian Saw delivered a stunning record-breaking performance that redefined the limits of the sport. Carlo de la Peña reports.
Facing elimination, the Houston Rockets bounced back with authority, defeating the Los Angeles Lakers to cut their series deficit to 3-1 in the Western Conference playoffs. Eamon Thompson led the charge with 23 points, while Houston capitalized on turnovers to swing momentum in their favor. The Lakers struggled offensively, with LeBron James limited to just 10 points and committing multiple turnovers in an uncharacteristic outing. Already missing the scorers Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves due to injury, Los Angeles also lost DeAndre Ayton to ejection in the third quarter, further weakening their lineup. With contributions from Terry Eason and Alperen Şengün, Houston kept its season alive and now looks to extend series further in Game 5. Meanwhile, in a landmark moment at the London Marathon, Kenya's Sebastian Saw became the first athlete to break the 2-hour barrier in an official race, clocking 1 hour, 59 minutes and 30 seconds. The 31-year-old obliterated the previous world record and stunned the athletics world, achieving what was once considered impossible under standard race conditions. Saw's run capped a rapid rise in the marathon scene, following an impressive debut and major victories in London and Berlin last year, signaling his emergence as a dominant force in long-distance running. Despite battling injuries and a delayed preparation, Saw executed a near-perfect race, maintaining elite pace and endurance throughout the 42-kilometer course. His historic feat not only redefines marathon standards, but also signals a new era in distance running, with Saw hinting that even faster times may still be within reach. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Carlo de la Peña bringing you the latest sports news.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the words of the song. Discipline and sacrifice are the ingredients to success. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God in my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Prince Tripoli. Thank you for watching and goodbye.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.